The Han Dynasty, 206 BCE to 20 CE, represents one of the most formative periods in Chinese history, not only for its political and territorial consolidation, but also for its legal and moral thought. Following the collapse of the Qin dynasty, which had relied heavily on the strict punitive principles of legalism, the Han rulers faced the challenge of establishing an administrative system that could ensure stability while promoting ethical governance. This challenge led to a distinctive synthesis of law, fa, and morality, de, which became a hallmark of Han political philosophy and administration. 1. Historical context. From Qin legalism to Han Confucian adaptation. The Qin dynasty, 221 to 206 BCE, had unified China but imposed a rigid legalistic system that emphasized strict laws, harsh punishments, and centralized control. While effective in achieving political unification, legalism alienated the populace and led to social unrest, culminating in the dynasty's rapid collapse. The Han dynasty, under Emperor Gaozu, Liu Bang, and his successors, inherited both the administrative apparatus of the Qin and the need to legitimize rule in the eyes of the governed. Confucian scholars, who had been suppressed under Qin rule, were reinstated as moral advisors and bureaucratic guides. Confucianism, with its emphasis on virtue, ethical conduct, hierarchical social order, and moral education, offered a counterbalance to the rigid enforcement of law. The Han synthesis did not discard the Qin legal apparatus, but rather sought to integrate it with moral governance, producing a system in which law and morality reinforced one another. 2. The role of Confucianism in Han governance. Confucianism became the ideological foundation of the Han state, particularly under Emperor Wu, R. 141 to 87 BCE. The key principle was that rulers should cultivate personal virtue, junzi, to inspire moral conduct among subjects. The famous Confucian idea of government by virtue, de shi, suggested that ethical example, rather than coercion alone, could lead to social harmony. The Han state institutionalized Confucian morality through the civil service and education. The establishment of the Imperial Academy, Taishu Taixie, and the promotion of Confucian classics as a basis for bureaucratic recruitment ensured that government officials were both knowledgeable in law and morally grounded. Legal codes were interpreted in light of Confucian values, emphasizing leniency and ethical considerations alongside formal statutes. 3. Legalism in Han law, structure and enforcement. Despite the Confucian overlay, the Han legal system retained important elements of legalism. Laws were codified, and penalties were clearly delineated to ensure predictability and authority. The Han Code, Hanlu, Hanrud, was a compilation of statutes that governed criminal, civil, and administrative matters. Unlike purely Confucian morality, which relied on persuasion and ethical cultivation, legal codes were enforceable, and officials were obligated to administer them uniformly. However, the Han emperors modified strict Qin punishments with Confucian leniency. For example, minor offenses often resulted in fines or labor rather than corporal punishment. The legal system was thus hierarchical. Laws protected imperial authority and social order, while moral considerations mitigated severity, promoting justice tempered by ethical reasoning. 4. The synthesis. Law as morally informed governance. The Han synthesis can be understood as a dual approach. Law provided the framework for social order, and morality guided its interpretation and application. Legal codification ensured uniformity and deterrence, while Confucian moral principles encouraged officials to exercise discretion, fairness, and compassion. In this way, law was not a rigid instrument divorced from human concerns, but a moral tool to cultivate virtuous behavior in both rulers and subjects. A prominent example is the treatment of familial obligations. Confucian ethics emphasized filial piety, xiao, hou, and family hierarchy. Han legal statutes incorporated these values by prescribing lighter punishments for offenses committed in contexts involving family loyalty or moral duty. Similarly, the state encouraged charitable acts, ritual propriety, and moral education, recognizing that such behavior could prevent crime and social disorder more effectively than punishment alone. 5. The bureaucracy and moral legal education. The civil service was the central institution through which the moral legal synthesis operated. Officials were trained in both legal codes and Confucian classics, and their performance was evaluated not only on administrative efficiency but also on moral conduct. This dual emphasis created a bureaucratic culture in which ethical considerations were inseparable from governance. Scholars such as Dong Zhongshu, 179 to 104 BCE, articulated theories linking heaven's mandate Tianming with moral rule, further legitimizing the fusion of ethical authority and legal power. Dong Zhongshu argued that human law should reflect cosmic order. Unjust laws violated moral principles and risked heavenly disfavor. Consequently, rulers were morally obligated to enact and enforce laws that harmonized human behavior with universal ethics. This approach integrated metaphysical, moral, and legal reasoning into a coherent governance philosophy, distinguishing the Han system from the purely punitive legalism of the Qin. 6. Social and political implications. The Han synthesis had several significant outcomes. First, it stabilized the empire by reducing the resentment that had characterized Qin rule. Subjects experienced a more humane legal system, and officials were morally accountable. Second, the integration of Confucian morality into law reinforced hierarchical social structures, legitimizing imperial authority and the bureaucratic elite. Third, the emphasis on moral cultivation created a long-lasting political culture in which law and virtue were inseparable, influencing subsequent dynasties, such as the Tang and Song. However, the system was not without tension. The reliance on moral judgment could lead to inconsistent enforcement of laws, and officials' interpretations of morality sometimes conflicted with codified statutes. Yet, the overarching balance between legal clarity and ethical discretion provided a flexible framework that adapted to the empire's diverse regions and populations. 7. Legacy of the Han synthesis. The Han dynasty's synthesis of law and morality became a defining feature of Imperial China. Later dynasties continued to codify laws while emphasizing Confucian ethical governance, creating a uniquely Chinese model of rule that persisted for over a millennium. This integration influenced not only political institutions but also Chinese cultural identity, emphasizing harmony, hierarchy, and the moral responsibilities of rulers and citizens alike. The Han model demonstrated that law could not function in isolation from society's ethical framework. By balancing codified rules with moral guidance, the dynasty achieved a system that was simultaneously authoritative, flexible, and ethically grounded, a remarkable achievement in political philosophy and practical governance. Sources: 1. Ebri, Patricia, The Cambridge Illustrated History of China, Cambridge University Press, 2010. 2. Lewis, Mark Edward, The Early Chinese Empires, Qin and Han, Belknap Press, 2007. 3. Low, Michael, The Government of the Han Dynasty, Cambridge University Press, 1967. 4. Nyland, Michael, The Five Confucian Classics, Yale University Press, 2001. 5. Wang, Robin, Harmony and Hierarchy, Confucian Political Philosophy in Han China, Harvard University Asia Center, 2009. 6. Holsaway, Anthony F. P. China in Central Asia, The Early Stage, 2nd Century BC, 8th Century AD, Brill, 1979.